Can you lie with statistics? Before you call me a conspiracy theorist, let's look at Bill Gates' reading list. How to lie with statistics. Before you fact check and call that a conspiracy theory, let's look at his website Gates Notes, telling people to read the book How to Lie with Statistics. There is terror in numbers, writes Darrell Huff in How to Lie with Statistics. And nowhere does this terror translate to blind acceptance of authority more than in the slippery world of averages, correlations, graphs, and trends. The book remains relevant as a wake-up call for people unaccustomed to examining the endless flow of numbers pouring from Wall Street, Madison Avenue, and everywhere else someone has an axe to grind, a point to prove, or a product to sell. The Atlantic says, a pleasantly subversive little book guaranteed to undermine your faith in the almighty statistic. I also talked about this phenomenon in my latest interview with Dr. Shiva, who explained why engineers have to be more accurate. To a lot of people on Facebook, on Twitter, average citizens who are skeptical about what's going on, if they ask any questions outside of the health experts, they're called conspiracy theorists, or they say stick to the experts.
The way we win is to apply science. What I just told you is not only science, it's engineering. So, first of all, scientists can bullshit people. Engineers can't. You know, I'm a biological engineer. I'm an electrical engineer. I'm a mechanical engineer. I'm an engineer of scientific visualization, okay? So what is engineering? Engineering means you have to take the principles of what you think is science, which is always, you're always probing it. It's always a law or a theory, and you have to apply it. So you could understand Bernoulli's principle, which means when air comes, you get lift under a foil, airfoil. But until you build an airplane, it's not real. It's just like theory. So the engineer does something far more interesting than the scientist. The engineer has to, where the rubber meets the road. So I trust engineers more than I do scientists. You know, people actually build something, the plumber, the electrician, people actually have to solve problems. Because when you have to solve something, you have to actually practice the principles of science. And if those principles can't work, that means the science is bullshit, okay? So engineers, you can't build a piece of software and say, well, you can't talk your way through it. What do scientists do? They gather data and they fit a bunch of lines to a curve. It's more statistics. So scientists can bullshit. Engineers can't. Because you can talk your way out of, you can talk and the airplane falls out of the sky. It doesn't matter what you thought you did, or you can talk all sorts of things. You build a piece of software, no one buys it. It means something's wrong. Your stuff is not, the rubber's not meeting the road, or the rubber, is not touching the road, or whatever that analogy is. The point is that engineers have to make something. This is why working people already know a lot of this stuff is bullshit. Okay? They may not go to MIT and blah, 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 but they know, what are you talking about?
It's funny when Facebook tries to fact check my videos, because my videos are actually more factual than their own fact checkers, which is slightly embarrassing, but I don't think they really have much shame over there at the ethics department. Speaking of facts, Wednesday, January 8th, 2020, Glacier National Park is replacing signs that predicted its glaciers would be gone by 2020. So why did they falsely predict that the glaciers would be gone by 2020? Well, like Shiva and even Bill Gates was telling you in his reading list, models, data, and statistics are not always right. And when it comes to politics and a lot of big money interests, they're rarely right. Inaccurate virus models are panicking officials into ill-advised lockdowns, says the Federalist. And this is nothing new. It's mainstream news that the models that they used to drive our policy were way off. Even Cuomo admitted it. New York projections on beds and ventilators were off. He says the love and the spirit was the reason that it was off. Sure. Britt Hume seems to be catching on. The IHME model again, because Florida's death toll just dropped in their model from 4,748 deaths earlier this week to 1,363 deaths by August 4th. That's a massive, massive difference, especially when you're driving policy that's destroying millions of jobs, keeping millions of people inside, and even in certain states like New Jersey, undermining the First Amendment, your right to peacefully assemble. Speaking of the IHME model, where do they get a lot of their funding? Straight on the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation pledges $279 million for IHME to expand its work. So the guy who told you to read How to Lie with Statistics is funding not only the models that's driving our policy, not only the potential cure to the virus.
It is fair to say things won't go back to truly normal until we have a vaccine that we've gotten out to basically the entire world. And so, the best people at the foundation who are all about high volume vaccines
that doesn't exist yet in its full form, so they have no reason of knowing if there even is a cure, or if it's like the flu vaccine, if it will eradicate or slow it down at all. He's funding the factories building that, which he then wants to give that product to pretty much every human in the entire world. And he's not only funding the institute that makes the models, he's also funding the competition for the vaccine, which is the hydroxychloroquine research studies. Yahoo reported yesterday, sunlight destroys virus quickly, new government test finds. I can't believe they were even allowed to put that out. Not gonna lie, it's not conclusive and it's not official yet by the government, so I'm surprised they were even allowed to report on that. Similar to the Nobel Prize winner who discovered HIV, personally thinks that it's a man-manipulated virus, but Facebook fact-checks articles who say that and says that it's false info. I didn't say it. The Nobel Prize winner who discovered HIV said it, but it's barely being reported on. If anything, it's being covered up. The point of this video is simple. Just think critically and understand whether it's the biggest skeptics of what's going on right now or the people who are trying to drive the policy behind what's going on right now, like Bill Gates. They all want you to understand the simple science and the simple logic behind how to lie with statistics, and that it is very, very possible for big interest, big money, big politics to get behind charts and models where the data isn't really as accurate as possible. They're even coming out with reports now that the virus is potentially 50 to 60 times less deadly than they said, but we talked about that a month ago because when you have the amount of confirmed cases don't equal the amount of real cases, when there's not enough tests available, when a lot of people who have it are asymptomatic and they're not getting tested, and you use that number, which is obviously way lower than the real number of cases, and then you relate it to the amount of deaths being reported, it's not going to be an accurate number. That's real simple science that they don't explain because a lot of politicians and media have an agenda, whether people on the left or the right want to admit it or not, and try to shame people who believe in the First Amendment. It's really happening. Share this video. God bless you. Stay optimistic, stay healthy, and stay blessed, and I'll be back with more videos.